Welcome back to the program's Psychophants. It's good to be back. Good to be back in the saddle again with all of you. First and foremost, thanks for your patience. I know a few of you have asked, where the hell have I been? I've been around. I just haven't been around here. Just a lot of big doings going on over the last 2 or 3 months, and most of it not happening in the garage here. So I do have a good excuse. I haven't been just sitting on my ass here over the last 3 months. I have thought about posting videos, but I've sort of been in a spot where I couldn't do that because I wasn't near my computers and I wasn't in the garage where all my stuff is, and I couldn't do it. So basically what happened was, after I posted my last video in July or August, I went on a 1-month vacation. And this is what took up a lot of my time. And actually, when I got back, as things happen, work piles up. You have to shrink the pile, and it takes a while to do that. And I'm just now getting caught up to where things were before I left. But just to sort of give you the Reader's Digest version of what went on. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this to you in installments over the next few weeks and just talk about the trip I did. But this was really a trip that was 4 or 5 years in the making. It's one of those trips where you keep putting it off because you know it's going to take a long time to do it. It's not inexpensive to do it. And you know, if you're like me, I mostly work for myself. So if I'm taking a vacation, I'm not working, so I'm not making money either. So it's a double whammy. Number one, it's costing me to go on a vacation. Number two, it's costing me because I'm losing an income basically when I'm doing it. So many excuses to why I've been putting it off, but I just said, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. I need to get this done. So I basically went on a giant road trip, and I really wanted to do it. I wanted to tour the whole country and do it in a road trip. I don't like flying places. TSA that's a whole nother ball of wax I won't get into now, but I prefer to drive. Just because you miss everything when you fly, but it's a lot of fun too. But there's just no way I could do it all, see the whole country in one trip. It'd take too long to do it. So I kind of broke it up into pieces. So this trip I call the Northern Trip. I left early July and got back early mid-August. It was about 4 weeks or so. And I think I hit 16 or 17 states and 2 Canadian provinces. And it was amazing. It was 5 times better than I ever thought it could be, and I just wish I had done it sooner. I wish I hadn't put it off this far. So just real quick, Reader's Digest version of kind of what happened and where I went. I first went to Michigan, went up to the UP of Michigan, to Mackinac Island, went into Canada to Sault Ste. Marie, saw the Sioux Locks, and then drove all the way over the top of Lake Superior, that's starting to get pretty north. And it was kind of really weird and kind of cool because at 10:30 at night it was still dusk. You'd still see, you'd be outside and the sun hadn't completely set yet, and it wasn't completely dark because you were that north. So came over the top of Lake Superior and went to Thunder Bay, and then came back into the States, right in the corner where Canada and Minnesota, kind of in that upper right corner, and went to Isle Royal National Park, or the Royal Isle, I can't remember, which is out in the middle of Lake Superior. It's the least visited national park of all the parks in the lower 48. Only about 10 to 12,000 people go there a year. You got to take like a 20-mile boat trip to get to it, and it's just amazing. It's like going back 200 years and looking at just the wildlife and the trees and the water. It kind of reminds you of like On Golden Pond, if you've seen that movie. So that was really cool. And then once we left there, we went into Canada, and let's see, we went to, we basically headed towards Winnipeg, which is in Manitoba. And that was a really cool drive because now you're starting to get out in the middle of nowhere in Canada, but it's just gorgeous. All these yellow canola fields, and just, rural. It's just peaceful, and it's just beautiful. Winnipeg was kind of a nice town, stayed there for a night. And then we dropped down into the States, into North Dakota, Went to Teddy Roosevelt National Park and went to Medora, which is just outside Teddy, and they have an outdoor musical. It's like a big famous, it's like a world famous musical. So we went to that, and then we started heading west, and that was out towards Wyoming, Montana. Went to the Battle of Bull Run area. Headed towards Cody, Wyoming, which is just a great town. Went to the rodeo there. Then went into Yellowstone National Park. Did Grand Teton National Park. Headed north to Glacier National Park up on the top of Montana. Went over into Washington State through Spokane. Went to Mount Rainier, dropped down into Oregon, did the River Gorge, went down into California, Redwood National Forest, which is kind of just south of the Oregon-California border, and then dropped down towards the Bay Area where I have family. So it was really nice because that's sort of my West Coast juncture point where I could kind of, get my sea legs back. And so I spent 3 or 4 days out there kind of just resting and recovering. So I got to see family out there, and then did the whole Bay Area, San Jose thing, and then left to come back, and then went back through Yosemite. I've been there before, but it's still great to go back. Yosemite National Park, towards Lake Tahoe, in Nevada, and then took I think it was Interstate or US 50. That's the loneliest road in America, through Nevada. That was pretty cool. You're out in the middle of nowhere, man. You can do 95, 100 all day, and you won't even register on a police radar because they're not out there. And then that sort of takes you towards Bonneville, going towards Salt Lake City. And so checked out the Bonneville Salt Flats, went through Salt Lake City, stayed there, I think, and from there I think headed back towards South Dakota to see Mount Rushmore, and then from there dropped back down into the Midwest, stopped in Springfield, Illinois to check out the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and his tomb there in the cemetery, and that was sort of the ending of the trip. But all along the way, in order to save some money, I tried to camp as much as I could. So I probably camped 8 or 9 days out of that, which was very helpful. Packed a bunch of food. I didn't take the Porsches, didn't take the BMWs. Just there's not enough room to do it, and the cars would have gotten absolutely chewed up. For a moment, I actually thought about trying it. But looking back on some of the roads I took, holy cow, the cars would have just been destroyed. So fortunately, my sister let me borrow her Ford Explorer, which was perfect. I filled the whole thing up anyway, so I needed the room to do that, to put all the camping gear and coolers and sleeping bags and tents and all that stuff in there. So it worked out really well. And I think when it was all said and done, I think it was almost 8,000 miles. In about 4 weeks. I actually ended up getting back home about 3 or 4 days earlier than I thought. I was able to steal a couple days in the Great Lakes area. I was able to do a couple things in the same day that I didn't think I was going to. I plotted everything out before I left, almost a sort of a triptych on everything I wanted to do every day, and so I could sort of stay on schedule and not get behind, because I really need to get back in a month. That was sort of my time frame to do it. And fortunately, I was able to squeeze it in and get it done maybe 3 or 4 days quicker than that. But I actually threw in a couple extra places I didn't think I was going to get to, especially Glacier. Glacier is way up in the top of Montana. So basically, I had to traverse the whole state of Montana in one night in order to add that to the trip. And it was so worth it. That place was just amazing, especially since they didn't open the roads there and clear the snow till the end of June, so I was there in mid-July, so it was really crowded, and it closes in September, a lot of the roads, so it's only open for a very small window of time. So a lot of these national parks were pretty crowded, but others weren't so bad either. You get out in the Dakotas, Wyoming. Once you get out there in Idaho, There's not a lot out there. So if you've got some itineraries, some attractions on your schedule that you want to hit, those are really nice places to do it because there's not a whole lot of people there. If you want to go to Yellowstone, yeah, it's going to be crowded. There's just no way you could get out of the car practically and see Old Faithful Geyser. There's just so many cars there. You almost had to just do a drive-by. But in any case, that's sort of the Reader's Digest version. I took so much video and so many photos. There's just hours of video. And I think I took almost 2,000 photos. So I think what I'm going to do is over the next few weeks is sort of just break this trip into a few pieces, maybe do 2 or 3 states at a time, or a couple states, or 2 or 3 attractions, just however it works out easiest for me in editing this stuff. And I'll upload the videos, and I'll sort of talk about the things that struck out to, for me, sort of like big ticket thoughts on each place that we went to and what my thoughts and impressions were on it. Because it was really interesting. The further, I didn't anticipate this, but this is sort of how it happened. The further west I went, until I got to the West Coast. I mean, once you get to California, Oregon, Washington, it's hippieville out there. So it's, it's a completely different animal. But the further west I went, I would say that the friendlier people got and the more patriotic people got. It was just really interesting. And, every place has its own unique culture and even subculture with how they live. And, I was thinking out in the middle of Wyoming, I walked into a mini mart or a store or something like that. And I was literally counting, big old cowboy belt buckles and cowboy sort of, Indiana Jones hats and cowboy boots. And literally everybody had them on. And it was the most normal thing you could possibly imagine. I mean, nobody even thought twice about it. And I was thinking, if you wore that in the Midwest, people would think you're a little fruity, a little goofy maybe. But out there, it's completely normal. And I would wear that stuff out there. I mean, it would be pretty cool. But it's cool for that area. I mean, that's just the way they live and the way they do things. And every place had its unique culture like that, which made every stop a little bit different than the last one, which was really good. And there was hardly any duplicity in the trip. Every place offered something different. There were places out in the middle of nowhere going over Lake Superior in Ontario. I mean, it's literally out in the boonies. There is nothing there, but the nothingness is part of the beauty, And then you get into places like Yellowstone where it's completely crowded and packed, yet literally every head turn is something more amazing than the last. So I'm looking forward to bringing this stuff to you, and I'll give you my impressions on it, but then if you guys have been to these same places, it'll be interesting to read in the comments as I post these videos what you guys have to think about them as well, and see if some of our impressions are the same or if they're different or not. But anyways, when I got back, like I said, the work had just been piled up, and I knew this was going to happen, so it's taken me 6 or 7 weeks to sort of just filter that stuff down to the point where I feel like I'm digging myself out of it now and can start posting videos again. So that's the plan anyways. So that's going to take up my time over the next couple, 2-3 weeks. I don't know how long it'll take me to put these videos together. I've just started to go through the photos, and some of them are just amazing. You get the impression is when you leave the Midwest, which is where I'm from, you feel like, well, it's what you're comfortable with, it's what you're used to. And then when you go somewhere else, it's like, my God, why would anybody live in the Midwest? There's nothing here. You go to a place like Wyoming or something, and it's like, it's so beautiful, you can't stop taking pictures. And then when you start getting back into, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, it's like, why would anybody ever come here to visit anything? There's nothing here. I mean, there's an opioid epidemic, there's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of orange barrels. There's a county fair or two, and that's it. I mean, that's all there is. And so I really got spoiled going out there, and it was one of those things where you kind of just dreaded coming back. But I had to come back. This is where I'm from, and so it was nice to get in my own bed again. That's for sure. Sleeping in tents is okay. There were some hotels in there, and that's okay too. But there's nothing quite like sleeping in your own bed. Taking a dump on your own toilet and all that other stuff that you just, the comforts of home, all that stuff. So, there's a whole bunch of mail I had to go through too, which I missed out on, a few bills that were a little bit late. So that's all squared away. That's all sorted out. So that's the plan. That's pretty much happened. That's why I've been AWOL over the last 2 or 3 months. I'll show these videos out. It'll be interesting to hear your thoughts and comments on them. I know it's sort of a diversion from what we've been talking about on the channel with, dealing with fixing and repairing cars and all that stuff. But, I told you at the very beginning, we're going to go in whatever direction content takes us, and this is where it's taking me. So if none of this stuff has any interest to you, you don't want to hear about it, then don't watch the videos. This stuff's not going to be for you at all. But if you're excited and you want something a little bit different, you want to see the video I shot, some of the pictures I took, and my thoughts about doing this northern loop, then you might get something out of it. Next year in 2018, I'm going to do the southern loop, basically, of the states, which is going to be Colorado south, and probably anything west of Florida. I mean, I don't need to do Florida again. I've been there too many times. And then in 2019, I'll probably do a little bit of the East Coast and then up the Northeast and then well into Canada and far east into Canada and Newfoundland, all that stuff. So it's kind of, I'm doing it in thirds here. So hopefully when I'm all done, really the only state I'll probably have not been to is Alaska. So that's, it's kind of its own trip in and of itself. But it's just amazing. Here's the most amazing thing probably that I took from the trip. When I got back and I started watching television, it was amazing. Like every 10 minutes I would see something on TV, whether it was, Travel Channel or Discovery or just the cable news of a story that's going on somewhere in some other state, how I could instantly recognize and place that location to some place I literally just was, or literally just, saw on an exit as I was going by. It's like all these places now have a personal relevance to me, whereas a month prior they were just a place I'd never heard of. And now it's like, well, I've been there. I mean, literally, I was standing like right there, like a month ago. Or I know that place. I was, those 2 exits from me. Or I was at that shopping mall just down the street from that. It's like the fires going out there in California now. I mean, literally, I was there. And then there was, they're talking about the earthquakes and the stuff going out in Yellowstone. It's like, I was just there too. So that was really fun. So it's almost like, it's been an education, obviously, but it's fun now to sort of play a little geography test in all these places on TV now that they bring up with stories and news and crises and shootings and all that stuff. It's like, oh wow, I can place that personally from where I've been. So if you haven't taken a trip like this before, I certainly suggest you do so. It's a whole lot of fun. It's kind of a pain in the ass to schedule, and I know it's it's not something you can do in a week, but you could get by a bus. You could get hit by a bus tomorrow, and you would regret it. You may be getting older. The older you get, the harder it is to do. So if you want to do something like this, do it now. So anyways, that's the plan. That's what happened. That's where I've been. And that's where we're going. So if you like this video, like it, share it. The only way this channel grows is if you share these videos. Share them on your social media channels, through YouTube, all that stuff. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe today so you never miss an episode. Take care.